What's up, guys? This is Immortal Minds, and it's cool. This is so cool. We're finally able to sort of, I feel like, unveil something that we've wanted to do for a long time. We have, of course, the Immortal Minds show every week, and that's about talking about updates and maps and concepts and things in the news and so on and so forth, and interacting with you guys. But one of the things we always wanted to do so desperately is really get into the nitty gritty on the pro matches and analyze them. And with such a all the big brains we have in the in the voice call right now, I think it's going to be a really fun time. So, of course, Sean is joining me, and we've got Mike's as well. And how are you guys doing? Are you excited for this?
Yeah, sorry, I had my mic muted for a second there. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Like you said, this was like our initial goal is to like dive into esports games, and we just didn't know how long it would take to finally get to a point where there's good enough games and we have enough of a ground footing like with the show to actually dive into some of the deeper concepts like this. So I'm excited to see how this goes because this is gonna be hard without a replay system and just doing it off of a VOD. Because there's a lot of shit that happens in this game, so this will be hard.
Yeah,
But
and
let's
it's gonna be interesting too, like how we kind of figure out how we want to talk about some of the concepts too. Because as you say, we could really go. I think we kind of set ourselves a time limit roughly of around like 90 minutes. But I really feel like even though we're just going to be doing one map here, I feel like we could probably go for 3 hours easily, knowing all of us. So, Mike, we haven't heard from you yet. How are you doing? Are you looking forward to this?
Doing good, right for this. I feel like the more I think about this, I kind of feel bad for anyone that's like a coach or an analyst for this game because the more I watch it, it's like there's so many different things that can happen just in one round. Like there's so many basic stuff that transfers from CS, like defaulting and map control, but just so many different characters with different abilities that can make different plays in any set in time.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be really fun. So I guess we might as well get into it. With that said, so again, there's lots of different ways we can do this, but I think what we can do, and we can kind of do this tentatively as need be, is we can go through sort of the opening 20 30 seconds, and then hit a pause, and then sort of take stock of the situation, and just I think treat each round like that. So that's what we'll do to kick things off. Mike is he's the man with the power over all of the controls on the VOD. So we were at your mercy, Mike, and your judgment. So let's spin it up. Sean, I know you've been playing a lot and you've been paying a lot of attention to the pro scene here, and this is
yeah.
a rivalry that's been pretty common. But if we speak about this opening, we have this pressure down short on A, and that's
Yeah.
pretty common.
All right, pause it here for a second, Mike. Pause it. I'll set the scene right now. It's hard to exactly see what. Yeah, so it looks like they threw a smoke at long C. So at the start of this round, TSM is doing a lot of stuff. So I'm kind of going to walk everyone through it real quick. So they threw a smoke at long C to deny info of C. I don't know if they threw anything to garage. I don't believe they did. Maybe he used one of his slows
I don't think they
for
did
garage.
here.
Okay, I don't think he did, but they caged the long cross so that way they could walk across into short A. That's something that a lot, even in like the higher ranks of ranked right now, what you're seeing is the Cypher will put his traps on like both extremities, and then he'll go towards A. He'll cage the cross, and a lot of the times you'll see like a Phoenix, like drone, for example, will flash out of the cage. So that way you can then take control of long. It takes the op angle off of long, it takes the guy spotting away, and it forces two people to play the A site. The second thing to note here is they they did something to get mid control. It's hard to tell based on this VOD right now, but they did something to get it. It's not like Hayes just walked up to B site to get it. Something happened at the start. I'm not sure what. We might have not even have that in this VOD. But then what's happening right now is the Sage, which is Hayes, is walking up to the B site, which is heavily retake. In the pro meta, the B site is like heavily retake setup, right? It's not really possible to just straight hold it. And oftentimes you see like one C, one garage, one B, two A, right? That's how the setups is on the map. So you're playing retake B, it's in the center of the map, you have good rotations to it. You don't really need to hold it. But because of that, it's very easy to fake, which is what you see Sage doing right now, hazed on your screen. He has this wall and he's going to put a wall up. You can see there's no one on his team around him. He's going to put this wall up. He's trying to pull an A player towards B right now with this wall. They denied info from long and they have three people waiting on short. So like there might be a little bit of anti-stratting, but like that's gonna set the scene for what's gonna happen right now.
Yeah, so with that said, I guess we can hit the play button again and see how things play out in terms of the rotations and the pressure.
So you can see there's the smoke. That's the brim smoke. They threw that brim smoke from short A, which is really cool. It's like that's one of the places he can reach with his smokes. So he threw a smoke C, came back to short. He threw the smoke B from short. And you can see they literally were just given the site for free. I think it was probably Crashy's playing there, right? As Cypher. There was a cam
Yeah,
at
I think they're
long.
playing retake A to
Yeah,
start.
there was a cam at long. So like he had eyes on long, but they all went short, which is very common actually because of the whole cage setup. You can abuse you can abuse ciphers at A by going short instead of long. That's something that I started to realize very recently. Is it's easier to actually exit out of short.
I love the options as well with the way that the mid wall is, just the application of pressure and the brim smoke as well that you pointed out. Just even if it is an A retake setup, just to allow for the most time possible to really punish the A retake setup as well as you could hope to. So I like that kind of evolution because again, like we're sort of in the early days of establishing the meta of pistols, the meta of how you want to play stuff, and much like CS, playing that retake style is like one of the safer ways to play the pistol.
Yeah, this is interesting. So like I kind of haven't really looked at the buy patterns in pro games. And it looks like they say it had two people stay on Ghost, two people upgrade as Spectres, and then Wardell bought the Marshall, which is like a one-shot kill on this round.
Yeah, we could
Uh,
pause actually. I know Mike has some points on this.
yeah, so like a lot of times in ranked, I run into people, even after you win pistol, those just say like full save. We'll all have rifles on third, but then you run into the random teams that buy back on second round. And then you're like,
Right.
you're outmatched on the second round. And then all of a sudden you're in a bad spot. So like I think they're trying to like hedge the middle ground a little bit here by keeping two people on Ghost and three people having guns. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I think too, like the way you see people do it in comps right now, and I think I've seen some pro teams do it as well. It's like they think of it as in, okay, we're buying Ghost this round because the Ghost is still extremely like strong on this round, even if they buy back because they're going to be on a similar buy, but you might have full armor and all your utility. The difference is if you now lose this round, your philosophy is, oh, it doesn't matter because I can buy full next round. Well, if they win, so can they. So the thing is, if you do this and not everyone, like if you're not ensuring like three people are on Spectres or Marshals, you're just delaying your economic reset another round. And then you're in the same position you would have been in. So yeah, it's like really smart if you do it like two people that are kind of like playing together with someone, they might be on the Ghost because it's not a strong gun. But if like everyone on your team is doing it, and like Sean said, if they force back, you're just kind of screwed again.
All right. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that does pan out because that's obviously like the meta, isn't it? You want to try to take those small edges, and sometimes you'll do something that's kind of suboptimal. But if no one's actually caught on to punishing it, then it's actually going to be better because you're actually able to cut that corner. So we'll have to see kind of the ebb and flow of that as the pro matches continue. But let's see how this anti-eco situation sort of plays out. I think obviously things will get particularly interesting once we get into the actual like the real gun rounds.
Yeah.
I know those are really interesting, and TSM definitely had a really good offense. There'll be lots
So
for us to talk about.
So this is actually like another thing that's really cool this round. So they start off the round kind of in a similar fashion, right? They get that A control. They always want to make sure two people are playing the A site, right? When you're playing attack on Haven, you don't want to be hitting the C site, knowing in your head, oh, Cypher's soloing A. That means that there's probably like one guy B, two guys towards garage, maybe one guy C. And then it's impossible. Like you're running into four people with, four different ability sets hitting a bomb site. You don't want that. You want two people in the A site, one person in the B site. So you want to like get that long control early. You want to get the short A control early most of these rounds. And that's why like the smoke in the middle of long, the cipher cage, drones flashes, all of that is to keep two people to the A site. And then they can mix in, sprinkle in A hits. That's what makes their pistol round so strong is it puts in the head of T1 right off the bat. Hey, we're going to run fakes. Keep two people at the A site. Don't try to cheat one guy out with a cipher cam. And, it allows them to abuse rotations later on in the game. I really liked the opening pistol, as you could tell.
We can
Really
hit a pause real quick here actually, because I want to add to Sean's point here because I think Sean's talking to I mean, it's a bunch of great points, but there's some bigger concepts that he's also working into here, I think, which are just like how do you actually get advantages when you're playing as the pro teams? Because you got to find ways to do so that is sort of as safe and sure as possible. And it's like CS. Like in CS, you're one of the reasons of that you'd gain map control or deny certain areas of the map by making it too risky for your opponents to go there is to deny information so they don't know what you're going to do. If they don't know what you're going to do, then you get a huge advantage because they don't know how to respond, or maybe you can help yourself to commit them to overuse utility, which overall weakens their defense, and you get a utility advantage, which is pretty huge in this game, trying to extract utility from the opponents. But also on top of that, the other way that the defenders like their best objective is, I mean, if they know you're going to hit A, right, and they can sit 5 players on A, obviously that's the most ideal scenario in the world. And I think Haven is a great map in terms of showing us how teams will really try to play the defense and make sure that they kind of overcommit the defense's rotations, create holes elsewhere on the map that are super weak that they then exploit with better timings for their own offensive rotations. And I think that's something we're going to see done very well in this round. So if we hit play right now, there's actually I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about Skadoodle's play here because he's going to die. Spoilers. Great flash comes through from drone and he will go down. Do you think Skiddle could have done that better? Is that just kind of
So
like a greedy move, or how do we feel about that?
it's definitely a greedy move. With that being said, I mean, in most of these pro matches, so there's a lot of minutia going on here. If you want to pause real quick, Mike,
Yeah,
I'll kind of like. So if I had to guess, what TSM probably said going into that round, and even how they approach in scrims, is third round of the game, we won pistol, we won second round. You hold tab always, you look at the money. Okay, there's hardly any chance someone at the top level, especially if they're not a jet, is going to glass cannon an AWP or an op, I guess, in this game. So, like, is Skadoodle as Sage going to glass cannon an op? No. So they're not going to cage the long cross. They're just going to flash peek it, right? If this round is round 10, they approach that take on A drastically different. So because of that, I don't think what Scoodle did is bad. I think it was the wrong round to do that, if that makes any sense.
yeah,
It's it's the wrong round to pre-slow. If it's like round 10 or round 6, some round later on in the game where he can afford an op, yes, that's a great idea because then you can get full control of A right off the start and rotate one off, which is probably what the goal is of that slow. I think I've actually mentioned that previously on a show we did, one of the earlier shows. So like he's trying to launch that slow because the second it lands, you can leave one from the A site pretty much. And then you can start playing heavily across the map. But you can see the impact of that kill and what it's going to mean for the B site. Like just watch how the rotations like flow around the map now. B is
yeah,
already a retake heavy bomb site. So TSM knows this and they immediately pounce on doing something with the B site. Okay,
yeah.
you
And I'll
can go
just
down.
quickly add, whenever you're in this situation where you, oh, I think Sean, are you muted? I see your mouth
Oh,
moving, but I don't hear
oh,
the.
sorry. Am I
Hey.
muted?
No, he was
My bad.
talking there, so we're good.
Oh, okay, cool. I just awkwardly broken the flow. Lovely stuff. Uh, I just wanted to add as well to your point there. When you get those picks, it's always worth thinking what is your opposition's biggest fear once that pick happens, and how does that impact their next maneuver? Because whenever a defense goes down a player, there becomes a huge hole. So they have to basically pick what hold there's going to be. And some teams, what they'll often do in CS, you see this very commonly. Now you're at a disadvantage on the players, so you have to try to find the information so that with the few players that you have, at least they will then be in the right position. So you have to take risks on information, or you take risks with and decide not to get information, but decide to kind of stack and just gamble based on maybe your best read of how that team plays. So, and this is kind of like this is exactly what you're saying, Sean. Here, the implication of that pick, TSM get to just capitalize on the fear that the A bomb side is vulnerable after losing schedule so early, and then B is completely open, and there's a rotation. So and then I guess we can play and see exactly how it works out in terms of the post plant.
I was
Yeah, I
just
think
gonna,
this is the round where like Crashy's flanks A, right? He
yeah,
flanks
Yes,
through
yes,
A. I don't know how he got past Cutler's trip. I'm guessing Cutler threw a bad trip right there because he literally just walked right by it.
yeah,
That kill in Sub Rosa, I guess that's kind of unlucky because Sub Rosa probably thought that flank was tripped. And then now these two guys are stuck front B side, like on an island. They're in like a horrible situation. And that's all because of that trip. But I also think in this scenario, this is so ridiculous, by the way. I think in that scenario, they should have probably rotated one off of B side and gone back and had someone hold the flank.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
this is
Mike,
definitely
you
one of
can.
those rounds where,
Oh, sorry, you can play through, Mike.
yeah,
Okay.
I was playing separately.
I think part of the flank too here is Wardell's going to switch off with Hayes after he plants the bomb so he can play close cubby, but no one's actually like picked up window. So there's like there's gonna be a gap here in the rotation on window because no one's like really holding it. Sabros is holding it from outside garage, but it's like a really hard angle to win here.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really unfortunate because you can see Sabrosa has a molly, right? Like that molly post plant on any site is just immediately like 15 seconds off the bomb. Like he definitely has that molly with that intention. So he could have easily like mollied the flank or like mollied the garage push and focused on the flank, but he thought that that wasn't a problem. So it's just unfortunate. I'm sure they're going to work on that trip placement, and it's just like one of those minor things.
yeah. It's an interesting idea as well. One thing I always like to, it's always good, I think, to understand when you're ahead and knowing how you punish the other team the most for you being ahead, so you can close down that advantage into the rounds. But it's always good as well to think, what is the one way though that they could get back in? Like, what would be the one worst possible thing? And obviously, in this case, it was most likely that faulty trip, and so that should just happen sometimes. But yeah, that's always a question worth asking yourself, and then wondering, is anybody taking care of that thing? Is usually a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, this is pretty sick. I think on this round, Wardell probably insta ulted his jet, sprung up over that wall, if I had to guess, and tried to pick the guy long because he's missing one of his jumps as jet. So I'm guessing he like looked over the long wall with it. I'm not 100% because the stream didn't show it. Like I said, that's one of the problems with this whole stream thing.
Yeah,
But
I think it's fair to assume that, especially
it,
given he has the ult out.
yeah.
I
So
was
this
just
is
gonna
like an eco round.
Yeah, I was gonna point out too. They had Food switch to A, and then Ska held the window peak with the op, so Food can get close mid. And Ska's gonna rotate off here after about 5 more seconds.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. So this round, my thoughts on it are right. Crashies looks like he's playing retake on A, and it's clearly a round where TSM doesn't have the econ to buy here. And T1 approached it with like a mid push, right? You can see on radar there Ska's holding top B, there's a guy pushing down mid, there's a guy close garage, and there's a guy deep C. And I think on a round like this to play full retake A, well, I guess it kind of all went to shit because of Wardell's play, right? Like pushing up super aggressively spawn with his ult. But even so, like it's a very risky play, in my opinion, to play retake A on this round. And I think this round probably cost them like a large portion of this half. Like this is one of those flip rounds that losing a round like that early in the half, having your whole econ go to shit, you're down like 5-1 suddenly, and the other team has an amazing economy. That's really, really tough to come back from. And I think it's all in the setup and the fact that if Crashies plays retake on A in this setup, I think he needs a cam hidden somewhere in the site. I mean, he literally he may throw one aggressive at long or aggressive at short at the start. They break it, and someone comes and smokes for him or something like that, and he stalls. Right? You can pause for a second, Mike. Sorry. So like if he's playing passive A like that, basically he needs someone to stall for him if he throws an aggressive cam, so that way he can then throw a passive cam. And the passive cam is only there for the retake, in my opinion. This is something that ciphers, even at the top level, aren't doing that well at. Like they're really not doing this all that well, where they leave a cam in the site and they have to calm fully the retake. So like the cipher should kind of orchestrate everything, right? Where the cages haven't been tripped yet, unless he literally needs to pop the cages to get a kill, like as people run up, which he didn't. In that hit right there, I think he was heaven, but he popped both cages And I think he should have probably saved those cages for the retake. Obviously, like in hindsight, you can look at it and the other team, they didn't even get out of CT spawn because the Jet and Phoenix were so aggro. But I think partially that's because there was no heavy utility usage on clearing the close angles. They could use the utility to clear the close angles if the cages were at the far angles and the camera tagged someone close. You know, if there was a hidden camera that randomly popped on, you know, like 13 seconds into the bomb plant, and then it tags a guy close, like say it sees Wardell close, tags him, he has to take the dart out, they retake, cages go up, and the site is almost impossible to hold at that point. But that's not at all what happened. Like that's so
Yeah.
I think that little detail with like how ciphers play those retake setups is going to matter a lot in the future, and I don't think it's there yet because like I said, that requires tons of coordination to pull off something like that. But I think it's going there and it's going to be there soon.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing that I've noticed is that in this game, you kind of there's a lot of spots where you really do have to play retake, and as you said, it does feel like people are sort of forced to actually figure this out. Because I agree too that it could definitely be more optimal. Um, and this is just an eco round, right? So I guess we can like play through this one.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting. Like in CS, I think the objectives when you're on an eco are pretty clear. Given what your investment is, it's just very clear. In this game, do you feel like it's the same sort of situation because the economy is quite different, and you can in theory have a lot more options to do stuff because of the way the abilities are and how cheap they are to get in comparison to like a full set of utility in CS.
I think so. I think ecos in this game there's like so many possibilities for just like an individual to open up rounds. Like when I solo queue as Omen, I have like a lot of like quirky, like cheesy plays that I can open up rounds with individually, but like double TPing. Jets have like crazy ways to open up rounds with dashes, and like Phoenix has obviously his wall flash tricks and like flashing and mollies and blah blah blah. Everyone has tricks, right? Every agent in this game has like crazy tricks that not everyone can be aware of. Like no one knows all of the tricks for every agent. So like it's very easy to flip one of those rounds by just getting an entry with those tricks. And I think that's kind of what happened with Wardell's ult in the prior rounds. So you have to be like really careful about that. Like you cannot take your foot off the gas on eco rounds in this game. It's actually worse than CS:GO in my opinion. Like I think CS:GO eco rounds are quite easy to win,
Mm.
but I think in this game it's actually easier. How do you feel about how do you feel about it? Like
Yeah, I
one
agree.
Yeah, like with the ability synergies and stuff like that. I mean, if everyone's full save on classics, no. And I don't think that's the case. But you know, if a Raze pops her ult and gets like 2 kills, or like a Jet pops her ult and gets an opening entry frag, all of a sudden everything's different. Like,
It's the classic problem you have in CS where if you try to over respect the eco as the guys with the guns and you give too much space, then it becomes even more problematic if the team knows how to use that space. If you go too aggressive, given that they can play fairly decently with numbers at close ranges and abilities, you also risk if they've read your aggression, you also risk actually dying. So you got to find that like that middle ground and with CS, I feel like it's kind of easier as the C as on the CTs or the Ts to like play. Like I think it's more predictable in CS what you have to do to most effectively consistently win those rounds.
well, yeah, in CS, you know, if you see certain things, you know what it means, right? Like, you know, if you see 3 smokes come over mid on train, you know, like 3 people are over there. But
Yeah,
in Valorant, you could see 3 smokes come over, and you're like, okay, that's just one brimstone.
yeah,
But
yeah,
me as Omen could throw 2 smokes, and there could be like a flash, and I have the same effect with those smokes as, you know, 2 people with smokes and a flashbang, but it's just one person. Like I could push you off of all of the aggressive angles with my utility and make you play the site, and then force, say, like, you know, 2 people to play A site. In this scenario on Haven, I could force you to play 2 people A and set up my team to do like a C split, even though like I'm throwing all of my shit. You know, like you have to respect it. It's different in this game. Like the information is less known because of how the abilities work.
yeah, yeah. And map control definitely functions very differently in this game as well. I guess so. We have another gun rounds here. This is round 6. So Mike, what are we going to see in this round? I know you were making some notes on this.
Yeah, so TSM goes for like a garage contact play, and what you'll see, at least like in high ranked I've seen on this map, is you'll always see someone like smoking garage window or they're flashing through the doors. I thought this was kind of cool because they're just going in two people together and just clearing out the angles, trying to catch the garage player off guard. Because now what you're seeing a lot more on C is you'll have the standard garage player, but that C player will be playing maybe like C con into garage, and the second you throw a flash or a smoke or something, that player is instantly going to be like looking towards garage. So then you're fighting two people. But when you do contacts like this, which TSM do quite a few on this map, you can get a decent advantage on that garage player.
So are we seeing a divergence from their default? That's another good question because I think Cypher's throwing the cage towards a long still. So yeah, so this is kind of one of the purposes of defaults as well, is to make the rounds look the same, even if you do run something quite different. So as Mike said, we have that initial garage contact that's attempted here, and they're gonna get
Yeah,
slowed down by that drone.
I can't remember exactly where they go in this round, but I would guess if it's anything like, yeah, so they're going back towards A. So it's exactly how they're operating on the other rounds, right? They're trying to take garage control. Why are they trying to take garage control? Because then they would force one player to play C, one player to play garage, one player to play B, and potentially they can pull someone off of A, right? Because they're trying to make it seem like they're about to pounce on C or B, right? By taking garage control. So they're doing that to set up this A play. They're trying to pull the rotations out of the A site. So that way, because T1 wants to heavily rotate at this point. Like they want to be able to be at the sites. They want to be able to string some rounds together and win rounds cleanly. Unfortunately, they ran into the stack on short and they just get absolutely obliterated. It's really good, like bait setup.
Well, if we go back actually really quick to just before that double came in from food, um, I'm pretty sure that this position you can you can clear it for free with the distance advantage. Um, this oh, is it the other spot? Or am I getting confused? One of those
Uh,
spots you can just clear for free
I don't think
from
this left side you can. You have
it's
to
the other one.
spend utility.
Okay,
So
gotcha. Okay.
I think I'm not 100% on the timing, but I saw ciphers in the last tournament. You know how you see Cutler caging the long cross? Well, in the last tournament, I saw ciphers caging the long cross, then immediately tossing their cam on like the right wall. From Food's perspective, the right wall, like in the hallway, more pushed forward. So like
Hmm.
it would be able to see him as he approached this corner at the start of the round.
Right.
So like you get the info if there's someone aggressing short. It's actually an insane like play for one person, right? Because you're caging the cross, which pushes the upper off of the long angle or potentially makes him fall back to the site. And then you're also camming short. So that way you're pushing the short guy off of short as well. So like you're literally filtering them back into the site, which then makes executing the site super easy.
That's awesome.
Like it's pretty insane that one person can do that. Like I feel like the cam time might need to be like decreased or something because that's actually OP when I saw that.
Yeah, that's actually so cool, especially because at first when we saw ciphers just using glitch cams and just generally being kind of gimmicky, it's kind of cool to see how genuinely just kind of substantial his abilities are in terms of the natural flow of playing the offense or the defense. People are finding really good uses for all those abilities. I guess we can just move forward. This round was basically over, right? We kind of just went through. We got pretty much to the end of it, I think.
Yeah, and I was just gonna note
Yeah.
too, Sabrosa did a garage window smoke, so that pulled AZK out of garage, and then Scott also walled front B. So they had three towards C and garage, so if they didn't get doubled on short here, they probably could have at least gotten both of them like top short and traded out, and then they just have the site for free.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a lot of pushing and pulling with rotations. I really like how they approach this game. With that being said, like that only works so much, right? Like you can only do that so much, even though theoretically you could probably always have a good guess as to the setup and then push and pull. But eventually, people aren't gonna be respecting your utility in the same way that like a team that's never seen this shit would, and that's the problem that they probably ran into in recent tournaments.
It does make me wonder too if the evolution is to it's almost like in CS, where in CS, what you do is like, let's say it's Inferno and you're playing your default in CS, you try to like punish the CTs who are forced to make an info play. Once you as a tease of one banana in top mid, they kind of you know that they have to get info somewhere. So they're going to pop flash and push something, whether it's going to be top banana or whether it's going to be top mid from like boiler or arch. They kind of have to make that play a lot of the time, not always, but then, teams started punishing because they started to realize that the CTs would try to actually punish, or rather try to respond to this by trying to get that information safely. So you create traps based off of that. And so I wonder if that's kind of the next step for stuff like this, where you abuse just a complete change in pacing, and you try to set up those traps to catch info
Yeah.
plays.
As a side note right now, I've noticed on multiple rounds, so, like, if I were on a team and I was, like, anti-shredding TSM, I would notice I don't know if you saw previously on pistol rounds, Sabrosa smoked C, I called it. One of the early rounds, he smoked middle of C, and the smoke faded, and AZK was behind it, and he got that kill. And then just now, you saw again he smoked C. Those smokes are shit smokes. Like, they're in the middle of C, but the reason why they're in the middle of C is because he's smoking from so far away. And he's smoking from far away because that smoke shouldn't be respected. He's smoking because he's Brimstone, he can only smoke so far on the map, and he's doing it from, like, wherever the hell he's doing it from. I don't know because 'cause we're in this VOD instead of, like, a demo,
Like
but
outside
what
garage entrance
yeah,
towards
he's doing
grass.
it he's doing it from, like, outside garage, which means that probably no one's actually behind that smoke at C, right? And also, if I were playing C, I would never expect someone to come through that smoke, because unlike a smoke at the top of C, this smoke in the middle of C long, you would then come through the smoke and be in a tiny, like, you know, choke point. You would be literally in the choke point of long C. That's terrible. You want to pop out of the smoke similar to like say like where do you pop out of smokes at in CS? Like if you smoke the end of Ivy on train or something like that, you lurk out of it. Like you want to lurk out of a deep smoke. You don't want to walk through the center of an Ivy smoke. Like no one would ever do that in Pro CS unless you know the rotations perfectly, right? That's why like that smoke in C is actually bad. If I saw that and I was playing C, I would just leave C. Be like, all right, this trip is going to do everything I need. Like I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to rotate out. But I would only do that if I saw all of these like this VOD. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna actually cheat a little bit towards garage while the smoke's up. I'll come back. Maybe we'll shoot like an arrow down there just to make sure. No one shoots the arrow. We know we're doing the right thing. Like it's a tell. I don't like that. It's like a blatantly obvious tell that I've noticed 6 rounds in.
So one thing as well now, kind of going back into this round. Now Sean's made some of those points. We do get that kind of standard opening again from TSM. But this time, just with that C long smoke, with the cage along and so on from Cypher to kind of keep that presence, keep that default going, make things obscure. We actually get Phoenix drone popping his ult. And so this is actually a cool thing in Valorant, right? This idea doesn't really exist in CS in the same way that you can have a clone effectively running through for gratis. And generally speaking, you never really want to ever fight this if you can avoid it, because and that's a general rule. Obviously there's going to always be exceptions, but in general you don't want to do it because of the resource exchange. What a player's life and all their utilities is extremely valuable. The ult is not nearly as valuable in comparison. So you usually just give up the space to the Phoenix ult, and you're going to hear it coming. So we're going to hear they're going to hear drone just thunder footing through B, and they're not going to want to use utility to kind of deal with it necessarily unless they think there's loads of players behind it, which there really isn't in this case. So I'm kind of curious to see if we play now and let's just see exactly what happens on the positioning for the defense, just because of drones play with the ult here, because it's not necessary to get kills. This is and obviously in matchmaking or whatever, you're going to use this ult to try to get kills most of the time and get openings. But pro players are not going to give that to you in this kind of a scenario. So instead, drone's going to be what he's reasonably looking for is to create space and move the defense around. If you can hit the play, let's go. Yeah.
And food drops his ult as well here,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that was a miscomm because of like how many footsteps somebody thought they heard. But they also went for the garage contact again because his ult hopefully pulls the garage player. They didn't have one this round, but hopefully it pulls them off.
Yeah, I think that ult on front B is kind of like a huge fuck up, if I'm being honest. Like I don't think your Brim should waste their ult like that just to try to deny a hit and just prolong a round. Because that's technically all that ult would do. Because if they were taking B in that scenario, all it's gonna do is cause them to back up and be like, all right, let's just reevaluate everything. But if you look on the mini map, it's not like T1 is like gaining ground on a flank or like doing anything with that ult. Like that ult is so valuable for Brimstone, like at just stopping plants. Like if you think about it, if a round gets like 10 seconds, you just win because you can deny the plant. Kind of similar to what AZK just did with his ult. Like you can use it to just literally just like stop plants or kill planters in this game. And that was also kind of like a bit of a blunder that he didn't clear that angle, but
Yeah,
that's
it's definitely a
that's
good point. It kind of goes to the concept of where is like how can you most reliably, most consistently get the value from something, and what is that value supposed to be? Where can that value be found, and so on? And it's like, oh, there is that world where like, oh, if they actually are running through there for some reason and the ult actually hits them, maybe you win the round off of it. But that's such a tiny percentage that you'd rather make the high percentage plays. Like that's like a minus EV play. If you look at like the resource invested versus what that resource can do it for you most of the time versus what you're actually getting for that. And that's obviously a very small percentage. So I'm
yeah.
just kind of like reiterating what you said there. So
I
sorry
understand.
if
If
I was
I
wrong.
have if I have an ult like Brimstones or like even someone like Viper or anyone that has like one of those ults that just takes up like a large chunk of land, like on the map, I am literally like coordinating entire rounds around that ult. Like if I'm an in-game leader, I'm saying, look, these are the ults I'm going to do throughout the game, unless of course I'm just denying a plant to win us a round. If it's like a mid-round ult and say like a team's hitting B, I'm gonna ult here and this is how we're gonna react. If a team's hitting A, I'm gonna ult all of short A and we're gonna immediately retake. We're gonna smoke off long A. We're gonna flash under heaven. But like everything is gonna be coordinated. It's not just gonna be like, oh, they're hitting B. I'm just gonna drop a random ult like front B site. Like I feel like that's kind of a fail in my opinion. Like, uh, I think Brim's ult is very good. Like, it's really really fucking good. It's
Yeah.
like it's one of those ones where you can't really afford to mess up with because it should grant you like 2 rounds a game kind of thing. It's along the same lines as when you watch this game and when you watch like the top teams play Valorant, the Sage always has the spike. And the reason why the Sage always has the spike is so that way she can get that extra orb point every time she plants the spike, right? She's also has the wall, so she's close typically to plant the spike. And obviously you want the most amount of res as possible in a game. So like that's what you see a lot of the times when you watch Bind and Haven is the Sage always has the spike.
So one thing here is we have another deviation from the default, or like another kind of fork in terms of how they play out of the default. And so again, to remind you, sort of the default being that they drop the smoke, as Sean mentioned earlier, to deny vision on C long, and they drop the cipher cage to deny information as to whether they're crossing to pressure A short or not. And they typically have some presence outside garage as well. So from the defensive perspective, you're like, what the fuck? This is, we can't really see what's happening at the beginning of the round. And obviously that's what a default's supposed to do. And so Mike, what we're seeing in this sort of deviation in this fork of decision making for TSM.
So they're basically just allowing them to keep the short control because, like, the first example we saw where T1 tried to go for that A long control, Scoodle swung out with the slow orb and then paid for it when he got flashed off. So they didn't really go for any more A long control after that. So I think TSM started kind of getting a read on that and they kind of realized, okay, we know they don't play long a lot, so they're mostly going for a short control of some sort. And we know last time food was playing in this corner, so this time they're going to like actually clear it out with utility, and they're just going to be contacting his area.
Dude, I just want to say that shit is so clever that he cams inside of his cage. So that way, when the cage is gone, he has full vision of all of long and knows if someone's close or far. And it's also like Cyphers typically just throw their cam out in the open and they just immediately lose it, right? Like they don't even get a clear shot of like what's going on around the cam. But if you throw it in the cage, the chance of them breaking the cam before the cage comes down is slim to none, because that means they would have to be shooting bullets in the middle of the open with the cage up, which you could run through at any second. So no one's going to do that. I mean, they might take a few bullets and then run away, but I mean, it's pretty clever to throw your cam inside the cage. I like that idea.
Yeah, and then drone here basically got, since they know that knowledge that we can get A long for free, they basically just let him walk all the way up, and then he's their trap ready to set once they clear A short here, because they know food played here before, so they're slowly clearing out all these angles, and then when they get a kill here, then he's just able to like collapse on the other short player.
Yeah, I think they actually cam it out, right? Don't they cam this out? And they have the cam. Yeah, that's Cutler has that cam because his initial cam wasn't blown up because he didn't throw it deep in the middle of long. So he literally was able to throw 2 cams this round that were super impactful. That's so sick.
Yeah, and
So
then
sick.
Crashies gets stuck top short there when drone runs through his trip from A long.
So, dude, Jet is just so broken with these fucking how she just runs through the trips. Jesus,
I
so
was so happy when I
frustrating,
saw that in
dude.
the patch notes. There's
That's
like
so
nothing more
ridiculous.
like there's nothing more like emasculating than like being a jet and like just getting all this like big jet confidence. You go for that entry dashing through and then just getting caught immediately in the tripwire, getting sucked back. Just like, well, never mind then.
Dude, this is also sick from Cutler. Like the fact that he is camming like the protection of his teammates right here, so that way they don't even have to worry about like some guy like being in the window or like some guy like running up and like killing them while they're saving these guns, because they have a cam. Like the whole time the cam is just there. So they would know if one of this like the saving guy on T1 is working up on him. That's something that I don't even see in ranked. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like that's really sick. His cam usage that round was like fucking excellent. It was really good.
It's honestly so encouraging to see people beginning to use the camera as you said, like in those kinds of ways, as you said, like as opposed to the ways that are obvious, but actually tailored specifically for the kind of round that they're running to kind of make up for maybe where a weakness of info is, as you say, because that's again, it's like goes back to that question, like what's the biggest way that we could lose a round when we're taking the risk to actually give up this big portion of map control on our side of the map, especially. Well, there's one ability that actually solves that problem. So it's great to see that the teams are thinking like that. So where we at? We're into the ninth round. What are we going to see here, Mike?
So AZK saved the gun from last round. Everyone else on T1's on eco. So he kind of goes, I think he goes a little bit aggressive at long C just to see if he can try anything, going off of like, we know Sabrosa keeps smoking this over and over, but they're not really going long C very much. I think they set up like a double crossfire in garage window for an eco. I think Skudul comes late. I've noticed this a lot in this game. I don't know if it was kind of like confusion or something, but I saw a lot of people on T1 kind of like rotating around. Like in the first 5 seconds of the round, they weren't like really set. So I don't know if they were still trying to call stuff or not. And then TSMers doing like in CS, it would be passive default or anti-eco and just basically getting a feel for what they're trying to do on their anti-eco.
It's actually kind of cool that AZK with his dart there actually caught 3 players right at the start. That's actually pretty key information because there is a window of time. Like if it was to be the case, obviously, eventually that information is useless if the offensive team just doesn't do anything. But that does slow them down, and it may not have been the plan to be slowed down like that.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy how much info AZK got throughout this entire round with like that dart and then the drone that we just saw. Like, I mean, his team was they were quickly like figuring out that this was probably going to develop into an A hit. You can see the rotate coming in on radar. You're just like a second too late. Like a good slow from Ska for front sight. It's just like I think if they had a couple more seconds and like a different piece of
Yeah.
utility, this plays out really differently. Like they were all over this.
Yeah, I think you're I think it's actually really interesting. You're right. I think it's one of those spots where there was just a little bit of doubt because they had that recon dart, the second one that landed on long, saw nothing. They had no. They saw that there was nothing in garage as well. Like it was so quiet on the map after seeing earlier 3 players all the way towards the C side of the map. So I think it's one of those things where maybe that's an IGL thing where you're just not calling. I don't know like what their comms are like and who does what calling on the defensive side, but as you say, I completely agree. Sometimes it's just that hesitation because, as you say, they put themselves in the spot to have the info.
Okay, so now we have Brax opping. Tyler's not opping. That's kind of interesting to me that he decided he didn't want to op anymore.
Yeah,
Guess
and
he had
he's
some
gonna get
bad luck
caught out
early in this
here.
game. That's super unfortunate.
It's a really fast round given the
They
slow
took
rounds we've had.
Yeah, they really changed up the pace and took Garage and caught him off guard. Like I don't think he plays this round the way he did. Like the flow of this match has really caught him off guard, it seems like he rounds that he thought would be slow went fast, rounds that he thought would go fast actually went slow. That's just super unlucky. Like but he wasn't playing Garage all the previous rounds, so he didn't know what the hits looked like. They were like trying to just move Brax around to get a different look in like different areas of the map. And it definitely cost them on this round, unfortunately. They might actually no, this is
This
it.
is the
Crashies,
crashies
yeah.
round.
I
This
just
is the
wanted to
fucking Crashies round. This round's
Buckle your
insane.
seats.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out too. Unfortunately, I don't think he gets the 4K if Wardell just holds his angle because he was holding this for
Yeah.
another like 5 seconds and then he starts walking up, and he has
Yeah.
to be walking and then stop to shoot crashies when he swings out from back default here. But I think he just got too early on his split here with the garage players. If he would have just held Cubby, I think they just kill crashies and win the round 5-on-2.
It's
Yeah, 100%. I was actually gonna say that same exact thing, Mike. Is when I watched this the first time, I was like, Wardell definitely fucked up by not just holding the angle. Like,
I mean
but
they even had
still,
the
this is
remote
still
here.
this is still ridiculous on Crashy's part. Like that's
Ooh,
it's actually so good, dude.
that's so mad. When I first watched this, I felt like he played. I was wondering if Crashies would like preemptively peek to get info because it's very tempting to jiggle because when you jiggle the sight boxes to long, you actually get so much info. Because even though you're only seeing one position, let's say, which is C long, you're you're seeing like if you see someone at the end of C long, that's a lot of time that they have to actually cross towards you. So you actually give your team a huge amount of time with that info sometimes. So it's really tempting to make that peak, but he actually wasn't ever going to make that peak until Brim dropped the ult, and he still somehow manages to get the kill. That might have been part of it as well. That he looked like he was almost inside of it too. But yeah, that was really sick from
Dude.
Crashies.
Dude, something that kind of goes unnoticed in that clip. I'm not sure where he did it from because this is a VOD. So, but if you watch Crashies, 2 slows land back sight, right? Like right around the time of the Brimstone ult. You can tell they try to coordinate it where like the slows land and the Brimstone ult happens. I think if the Brimstone ult happened like 2 seconds later, there's no way Crashy lives. Like,
Hmm.
because he wouldn't be able to get out of it. But because the slows were like a second late, he was able to peek into long and then reposition to short, like the garage entrance, and he was able to get the 4K. But I don't know where Hayes threw those slows from because he was coming from garage. Like, did he launch them over garage from right outside the door? Does
He
he have
might
like
have gone
lineouts?
back mid. We can check quick. I'll
Yeah.
rewind to see.
It's actually insane. I'm pretty sure there's 2 of them because they span the entire back of the site. Like, where the fuck are these slows coming from? So he has 1 slow right there, actually. He only had 1 slow left. Does he just bank it off of the wall in front of
Yeah, he
him?
just comes out and banks it, I think.
Ah, unlucky. I think if he actually was long with Wardell in a split like this, it goes totally different. But he had to res that guy in garage, so that changes everything. he probably had to adapt to the situation and go garage.
And that was also like the kill, like the person he's trying to res was credit to AZK, it's just who had great drone usage to actually
Yep.
pick up that or get that clearance with the drone mid round. Actually, it's actually really important to note like how people use the drone because it's super strong. Like if you use it in the right spots mid in the mid round when you're kind of desperate for info and the drone is just so powerful because it also can be at a time when players may not want to give up their position to get out of the way of the drone. They may have just eat the dart sometimes, and that's like a huge moment for a Sova to be able to do that for your team in the mid round. But
Damn, you ever seen a drone on a stim beacon?
no, I don't
It
think so. Actually,
fucking cruises, dude.
really,
I literally learned this last night,
what?
actually. Someone that was playing Sova was playing like with a brim, right? And the brim threw a stim down, and the drone went through it, and it started going so fast. It was
What?
literally just fucking cruising. The guy's like, I swear it's going faster. I don't know if he was on drugs, but that's neither here nor there. I just believe everything he told me, and the drone was going fast, according to him. Okay, that's all I know.
Love it.
So we need to test this out.
Okay, we'll go in the lab. We'll go get back in Cypher's lab, test it out. All right. So okay, so where are we at after that? That's excellent display from Crashies. Obviously, like TSM are in a pretty commanding position in the game. They had some pretty good results going pretty fast in Garage, and if I'm not mistaken, we're going to see more of that. Is that am I
Yeah,
right,
so
Mike?
they keep abusing garage control, and I think on this map, personally, I think it's easier to play retake C in general, and I think in the future, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like more emphasis will be put on like giving up C for double garage setups than there will be retake A setups.
I don't know. It's hard to say because like once people have that like long C control, I don't even know, man. Like the way the mollies work right now, dude, if you're playing retake on a site versus like a Phoenix and a Brim or like a Phoenix or like a Brim and like a Viper, like you have to kill everyone really quick if they're just hiding at the bottom of C with their molly and double acid thing, whatever. Like that literally takes 30 seconds, I feel like, off of the bomb timer. So I I feel like something has to change. Like there needs to be a new agent introduced that cancels out like Molotovs and acid, similar to like smokes and a Molotov in CS.
Yeah,
I don't know, because like if you coordinate something properly, you can literally just milk the clock to
yeah.
nothing, you know?
The snake bite's so good. The fact
It's
that
so
Viper
good.
has two, that and it has a pretty huge AOE. Like it's huge. The radius on it now.
Yeah.
And that's actually it's so nuts. It's so insane. I feel like Viper's still so underrepresented, honestly. But
Yeah. People are starting
yeah,
to pick her up.
in the
I feel like.
retake meta, I feel like she's so sick.
Damn, dude, that was a sick Phoenix wall from True. Oh wait, I'm ahead of you guys.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
ahead of you guys. Fuck.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
paused. All right, so right, refresh us again, Mike. What we about to see? Gonna see some garage shenanigans.
Yep, so they did the normal long C smoke and cage at long A, and then they're going heavy garage again. And I think Sabrosa smokes off top of garage con here, and they're going to contact through it with a flash from drone. And AZK is going to rotate off here because they smoked it off. So he's thinking like, oh, they're going to try split B through a garage window since they don't have any eyes there, and they're going to catch Ska off guard here up top.
Oh, I love how they're playing out of this smoke. That's so awesome. Oh man, this is a really cool. Actually, this is like one of those plays that's just very simple but can be very effective if you just if it's something that's not like your go-to that you do a bunch of times in a round. But you
Yeah.
guys can see like if you pause, Mike, if you go back to that spot where they drop the smoke at the end of the hallway from garage to the C site, I think it's just like this is just a cool, simple thing. Like that. So this garage take, they've done it a few times, and you can see that like because of the fear that's sort of instilled in, if you pause now, the fear that's sort of instilled in the defenders from these garage takes, that they're playing a little bit loose. Well, not looser, but like more passively. So the garage is kind of going a little bit easier in this case to TSM, which is great for them. And then that smoke, it almost seems counterintuitive because you're thinking, well, how do they take the fights? But obviously, this is Valorant. So with Valorant, you have lots of different answers with your own utility. And and look at the movement from AZK. He can't play close to that smoke because he knows that he could just get absolutely wrecked. But he also can't get information. So he also can't necessarily get the help that he needs. And it's 1 minute 15. You don't really want to dump all your utility here because that's also potentially a problem unless you really think they're committing. And then just to have like the Phoenix wall come out of this smoke so that people have this like on the fly coverage to just spread out of it. I think that's amazing. It's just a very simple, but I think amazing.
Yeah, this whole thought process on this round from TSM was really, really fucking good. Like this smoke for top garage, they're throwing this on this round because they know T1 can have an op, and the op could be on plat, and that angle from plat into garage is just ridiculous to deal with. It's such a bitch. So the way they dealt with it was they smoked top garage, and then they Phoenix wall out of that smoke. So that way they only have to come through that smoke looking one direction, and then Drone further uses his wall to flash through it. Like this is just insanely well done. Like honestly, I don't know if this is like drawn up in a server or if this is partially on the fly, but that looked so clean.
Yeah.
And another thing to note is when they take sites, you can always see Hazed as Sage is just slowing the rotate, slowing the rotate, slowing the rotate. Like he's launching slows to the back of C site every time. And that's because they want like the 2-on-4, 2-on-5, the Counter Strike 2-on-4, 2-on-5. They want that, right? Like they don't want to deal with like the Valorant ranked 5 versus 5 in the bomb site before the spike's even planted because the abilities just stall you out. Like they're trying to use the slows to make it like Counter Strike, which is nice.
Yeah, I think it's a good example too of like how annoying it is when a team takes garage control because it's kind of like construction almost in Inferno, like construction whereby like if you're gonna retake, you kind of there's this prerequisite you kind of need construction control, and obviously in this game it's because well, they, like Sean said, they can just perpetually just throw utility other at the only other choke point really. I mean, obviously long is there too, but you need the ability to kind of cut off more angles by also splitting from garage. Like it's like any attack in this game. You cannot have an attack and rely on just coming from one angle at the same time because that if you're not splitting up the attention of the defenders, then you're giving them an incredibly easy job. So that's like another benefit of having garage control when you have the C and when you hit C like that. Right.
Dude,
So we're going
TSM
to round 12 then.
firing in this game. This is insane. Oh my god, that's that trash smoke in the middle of long C.
The bluff has been called though.
So this is actually really interesting. So this is like something minor about this game is that's a good individual play by Scott to push that smoke and not respect it because I did say that that smoke is trash earlier in this VOD. But he has a res as Sage. That changes everything in my opinion. Like I don't think he should be making that play as Sage. I think whoever normally plays C should probably make that play.
Yeah.
And that could be just like a playstyle type of thing. Like I know they have a lot of passive players on this team, not a lot of super aggressive ones. So maybe like Tyler just realized he should probably just do it. But I wouldn't want my Sage to make that play with a res. Like I would probably just do it myself if I was on that team. Like I'm just
Did,
gonna do this.
did we get garage pressure in this one again? I
Not
kind of missed
really.
that.
It was kind of like light. It wasn't anything. They just kind of walked out grass. It wasn't super heavy contact like we're seeing before.
Because I like that they just walk into the B site here. Because that's like one thing as well. Like when you start to condition teams, it's usually going to be the case that you'll probably pull players away from the center, which is obviously the B site. So it does give you this option to like really mess with the rotations. It does seem like from that perspective and how many ways you can mess with the defensive rotations that this map is pretty T sided right now or attack sided.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of goes back and forth for me. It's hard to say because the
Mhm.
rotations are so fast, but at the same time, they could be toyed with so easily. There's 3 bomb sites. So, I don't know. I feel like it could go either way depending on how teams play it. I do like how Crashy's throughout that entire half was like spreading his trips out across the map. That's something that you don't really see a lot in ranked. Like you see a lot of greedy ciphers that are just like, I'm just gonna put all my trips all around me, and I'm just gonna make sure that no one comes C. And if they go A, I'm gonna be really upset. No, like actually, like a lot of times you saw Crashes like put a trip front B, so that way it helps them play retake even more, right? Like you can put trips in B as cipher, which then allows you to play retake more on B, which then means you get more help like at A or C or even garage, and it strengthens literally everywhere. Instead of right now, what you see in ranked a lot of the times is like, like it's very hard to hit C if a cipher is just putting all of his shit on C, but it also makes it easier to hit other places. So and it's easy to break his stuff too, actually, to be honest, if you're Jet. So I don't know. I like how he spread his stuff out across the map. It's
Yeah.
very, very good.
Well, we switched halves, and it's definitely not a good look for TSM. Obviously, this game was ages ago. Most people know the result of this series, but yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough when you have a start like that. I'm curious to see what you guys think of this second half. Although I don't think it's particularly long, but let's hit the play button. Let's see how this pistol plays out.
Yeah, and TSM start off with a 4A split here, so there's taking long control and short control pretty rapidly, and leaving Cutler alone on C, which I think is the issue of this round, because he's not really in a position to fight very well for his team. Like if they're going to rotate off A from A long when those two get up A short, he's not allowing much space for them to re-enter the site. Like if he's playing plat, that kind of buys more time for them to enter, but they're just kind of like stuck in CT. Or he just needs to be playing retake fully.
Yeah, that's weird. What?
Because like if he's playing behind default, where are the rotations where are they supposed to go when they enter the site? They're basically just standing out by CT and logs. At least if he's towards plat, they can swing out, try to get to default, but even though they got slowed and smoked there, they couldn't really get out on the site anyways. But
Dude, what a weird round.
You want to see that again, Sean?
I'm watching it again. Like I've watched it like 4 times actually, like a separate tab right now. I just don't understand. I feel like if Cutler was gonna play alone like that, he probably should have like a cage instead of buying a ghost. So that way, like he spots someone in the cam, he pops the cage on the left, that forces them to only come from the right. But instead, like he just has a ghost behind the site and they could peek it from left, right, long. They could fucking jump on top of the site if they wanted to with like raise. Like there's so many things that they can do. And he has nothing. Like he literally had nothing.
yeah, he
One
had
versus
one
five.
cage towards long C, but that didn't really help him because it was a 4 garage split. So
Yeah. I think he needed like full util up in that type of scenario and just like bleed the clock and try to allow a rotate to come in or something.
yeah, because if you're buying the ghost in that spot, you're going for kills, and that's just not like that's such a difficult position to be trying to like double up and go 2 for 1 or even 1 for 1 from.
Yeah. Or the alternative would be to like, yeah, you could buy the ghost, but you got to make yourself look bigger than you are. Like you have to go for
Right.
like something a little bit more aggressive and then be able to fall off. So that way the other team thinks like there's more people there than just you. Because like what kind of cipher would solo peek out of like the garage door for the first 2 seconds of the round? Not many. There's probably like one more right behind him in most scenarios, but there wouldn't be. And, like he would have had to do something like that if he kept the ghost, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know we kind of like are bagging on him a lot, even though they won the round, but because we kind of just talked about mostly what he was playing
I
there.
didn't realize they won the round. That's insane.
Yeah, because they flanked from the two pushing long A, and then they retook garage control. So T1 lost garage control and long C in the first like 10 to 15 seconds after they planted. And then trying to hold that site, there's just nowhere to play on if you're trying to play post play on the bomb.
Yeah, that's so sick. They brim mollied like the back corner on the retake from long. Okay, I actually was just like trying to rewatch the beginning to see like what the hell was going on, why they had one person C, and I just didn't even realize the whole retake was happening. That's a really sick retake.
And now we move into an eco. It's actually AZK's got he's purchased full armor here. Interesting. I wonder if that's actually worth it to invest at all.
I think like it's one of those scenarios right now where it's like 9-4, and they're just feeling the pressure of the score. So
Yeah.
they full bot probably. I don't even know.
I think they full bot, but like they kind of
like a
like
light
partial, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they got the spike down, so that's cool. And I think AZK was the guy that actually was it AZK that actually bought the armor? No, it's Carwither who planted the bomb. It's just as you were talking about before, Sean, the priority falling onto the stage to get the ultimate points. It's an
Yeah.
interesting bonus as well, actually, from in the perspective of eco rounds. An added benefit of getting those ults.
Yeah, and people do it too on like Phoenix. So if you watch Drone play Phoenix all the time, he is so hungry for those alt orbs, dude. He just like eats them
Yeah,
up every round. He'll go
Pac-Man.
get the alt orb, and it basically gives him like 2 extra lives in a game because he has his Phoenix ult, right? And this is part of the reason why smoking long as Brim isn't that sick, because he can be top site and look over it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they also have Sabrosa pushing up. I think he threw his own smoke, or that was food that put it, but Sabrosa gets the timing through that smoke while he's landing it.
This is a great map for Jet, actually, in the sense that this on offense and defense. There's like a lot you can do with repositions, and this is that punish that you were like talking about, Sean. That shit smoke just gets massively punished.
That was so smart. They had a guy top site looking over it, taking attention, and the second that person
Yeah,
shot, the person close swung while the
it's
alt
pretty
orb
sick.
was. Yeah, that was really good. That was really good.
I like that you added the extra detail there because it isn't just as obvious as the guy pushes the smoke. It's it's like the
Yeah,
guy feels like he's safe to pick up the orb because of seeing the Jet. That's a really good point.
yeah.
And this is that
Combos
angle
are
you're talking about
so
before as well, like
annoying.
really deadly angle to. It's so hard to deal with this. And oh, the smoke down there as well. Beautiful stuff from Wardell. Oh, so good.
He's
That's
actually
just so good.
incredibly good, dude. Like it is so hard to deal with someone that does that kind of stuff. Like gets picks and then just dashes away. He's very aware too of when he gets 2 kills and his dash comes back. I've noticed like the second he gets 2 kills, he'll activate his new dash. Like he's ready for it all the time, which is something that obviously comes when you play an agent a lot. Like you just that kind of stuff starts coming subconsciously. You can tell he's like on a very good like wavelength when it comes to playing Jet.
And he's also, I mean, he's also obviously he loses. There is some like loss of value when he plays other agents, but he that is something that they have shown that they'll do if they think that the Jet can't get the value. Like Bind is, I think, the map where Jet can struggle to get value in the same way if a team plays the style that T1 plays. Jet on Bind doesn't work out too well, but here we get just a hard commit coming up onto the A site, like really fast to change the pace. They're sick of this shit. They're just going for it.
This is really good. Brax, obviously, I think satchel through like all of the long nonsense to scale up on the side. I actually think it's really hard to scale up through long. I was thinking about it yesterday, and like when you come up long on this map, it's that super long corridor that always has a cipher trap. There's always a guy ready to swing from either default or heaven. So you have to like constantly like be training your crosshair on like ready to flick potentially. It's very easily get utility used against you. Whereas when you come up short, it feels like you're safe. Like you can always jump away to the box. And I think that's why TSM did a lot of short hits versus long hits. And it looked like T1 just now did a long hit versus a short hit. But obviously it worked out for them in that scenario, but it's just kind of like a preference thing. Like, do you like I'm sure someone could formulate a theory of like why coming out long is better. But right now in my head, I'm thinking coming out short's better with
Right, right.
the numbers.
I think the angles on short are just kind of more or like less intuitive than coming out long, because when you're going
Yep.
up short, there's the close angle on the right. You can play the off angle, like on the back right, just holding top short. You can play on top of the box. If you don't smoke heaven, they can be heaven. There's just like so many different weird angles when you're coming out there that some of them you can solve with utility, but a lot of them you're just hard clearing. But if you're coming up long, it's like sight box, heaven if it's not smoked, close right.
You know what it's like? It actually reminds me a little bit of Overpass, although Overpass has the monster swing is a bit better than the long swing is here. It's like actually the monster swing is one of the best swings in the game for the T side in CS, but it reminds me of that dynamic where short's really powerful, but there's like a lot you know, it's unlike monster where you just have to look one direction basically. With short you do have to it
Yeah.
helps to have some info and you need some utility to do it properly.
Yeah. I don't think I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'm not trying to like make the argument that you need one or the other. They're obviously both very important to hitting the A
Yeah.
site. Yeah. I I guess it depends on like what abilities you have, right? Like I think if you have close range abilities, or even like mine as Omen, probably going through short would be better because my flash could penetrate through like all the short walls into the
Yeah.
site and like get all that shit. And same with like Phoenix. Like a lot of those agents are better at that type of fight. Whereas if you have someone like Breach, you probably want to go long because there's so many things to flash through, especially the sight box itself. Like, you can do tons of shit from long with Breach.
I love the idea with that both breach and Omen with the paranoia can actually flash through stuff. It's actually really strong.
Yeah,
It's really good.
they're
Well,
insane.
it's we're basically at the end of the game now, right? This is the last round.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's
that's
the
the
really cool part too, though. Like, depending on what lineup you use, that kind of controls how you play the map in general, like how you do execute, what type of map control you take.
Jesus, Sherm just ran down
ooh
mid with his quad.
oh
That's
oh
so
okay.
annoying.
That's how you want to end the game.
Yeah, they just that's like a disrespect end, dude.
Oh, the brim ult as well.
Holy
Yeah,
shit. They played like such a clean game this whole time, and then
yeah,
like the last round hits, and they're just like, all right, let's just fucking disrespect him. They'll never see it coming. Like,
I love it.
that's insane. He just immediately ults and pushes mid. And then a
Yeah,
fucking brim ult. Just like, what? I would
it's
never expect that.
it
T1
kind of
game.
reminds me of like how people run down mid on Inferno. Like I'm drawing all these Counter Strike references, but it kind of reminds me of that. Like if you do that a couple of times a game, if you pick that
Yep.
right spot where the air like really will catch, like you pick that spot where the other team's really thinking about like precisely this intricate plan they're going to execute, and you hit them with this aggression, and they're just like, "Whoa, what the fuck? What are we? We're having to react. This sucks."
Dude, these morons are just running down mid on
Yeah.
us.
Oh man. Um. So, all right. So we're at the end of the review. This is pretty cool. We're gonna definitely do more of these. I think I had fun with this. Did you guys? What do you guys think? You enjoy this? Should we do this more?
Dude, fuck, man. This is actually really hard to do without like the spectator client.
Yeah.
Like, I never
Yeah.
realized how hard this would be. Like, there's just so much stuff going on in this. I can't wait till like the devs release something, like Go TV, demos, anything, man. Like, I can't imagine how hard it is to cast this game right now. You've done it before, Dan, but like
Yeah, it's
there
tough actually.
in CS you can like look at the mini map and you can literally just guess like what's gonna happen, like who's gonna use what ability, like or what what utility, like what times. Like if they're Ivy, they're gonna smoke Molly at the end and like blah blah blah. Like it's not like they're gonna fucking launch a smoke like from Ivy into inner. Like that's not that doesn't really happen. So, but with Omen at Ivy, if Omen was Ivy, Omen could smoke anywhere from Ivy. So like you actually have to keep an eye on him. Like you have to figure out what the fuck he's doing over there.
Oh my
So like
god.
how do you commentate that? Like you can't. They they need to solve some of those problems, I think, because when I watch the casters, I'm just like, dude, they have this so hard. Like
Yeah.
they're literally just getting thrown in the ocean with no boats around. Like good luck.
I
Yeah.
think the. Oh, God.
I was just gonna say it's pretty hard to see the intricate stuff. I know that like you can still get like a good enough read of like the flow of the game, and like you can establish how a team's setting up their default, which gives you enough to go off of. It gives you like an expectation. and you can kind of set that up at least and say, okay, this is how they're defaulting, and you can see this is how it's affecting the other teams, this is how they're trying to tackle it, and these are like the ways that they're building out of the default. But you do miss a lot of the smaller things that in CS is really a lot easier to see, that I think really kind of adds so much more flavor. So it's doable for sure, but it is difficult. And I think as well, right now we have a lot of people that don't necessarily have the CS experience. So I feel like I'm actually benefiting so much because like I can take those bits of knowledge for granted.
Yeah, for sure. Like I definitely think like the other esports titles are at a bit of a disadvantage because they obviously didn't have that CS knowledge of like rotations and 5 versus 5 and spreading the map and running defaults, and all of that kind of transferred really well to this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's tons of other shit that like is just way, way different than Counter Strike. Like things that like cipher cameras. Like you can't run the same strats from CS in this game with a cipher camera. Like that's just
Yeah.
that alone is just gonna ruin everything. So you have to take that into account. I don't know.
What were you
I
gonna
can't wait.
say? What were you gonna say, Mike? I think you had a
Oh
point that you
yeah.
were gonna make.
I was just gonna say apparently the reason the demo system is taking so long is because the engine the game is built on, which is Unreal Engine 4, I think, has very bad support for like replay systems in general. So I think that's why it's taking such a long time.
Um, Well, okay.
Damn.
Well, I think there's one question I want to answer because we said 90 minutes, right? And we're basically there. But I think Peak did ask a pretty good question, which was like, what did we think about the compositions? Because we didn't see a breach. We talked about the absence of Viper, and there's various things there. Um, you've seen so much Valorant now, Sean. You've played, I think, the most out of all three of us for sure. What do you think about the comps right now? And because these teams are actually the teams that are starting to set the meta, actually, in terms of comps right now.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of like copycats in the scene, right? Like I think people will probably watch this and try to copy how TSM approached Haven. But if I were TSM, I would be like switching my comp around. Like they clearly are ahead of the fold as far as like understanding, how to abuse rotations on this map. You can do that with any agent, right? That's what people aren't doing correctly. Like how they approach the rounds. It's not their ability usage is so insane. They could plug and place any agent in their lineup and they'll figure out a way how to use their abilities. That's what it looks like when I watch them. Like they have a lot of thought as to like how they're going to use their abilities every round to achieve the goals of the default, right? And so it doesn't matter if they have a Viper or a Breach or they're Sageless sometimes. They try to like coordinate all the abilities in certain ways. So I think I don't have like a favorite comp. I really don't. Like I think any agent is viable right now in this game. I think Reina's a little bit
Completely
tough to
agree.
play, but she's also really strong.
Yeah, I'll say it again. Like, don't fall into the trap of conflating these two different ideas. One being balance, and the other one being meta, because they're two different things entirely. Like if Sage had a wall that when she throws the wall down and in every bit of the wall is like an Odin that's just spraying or whatever, that's clearly OP as fuck. But that's not, that's and you always have to pick Sage then because she has the Odin wall. And that's pretty godlike. But obviously that's not the case. Like I don't think there's anything that really feels like in so insanely like there might be some agents that feel stronger than others in terms of their kit, but it's not so big of a difference in this when you look at the fact that, as Sean was saying, you can use all of the kit like to its strengths within the scope of how the team is playing synergistically with one another. And if you're always like gearing stuff around the strengths of the agent and the synergies, then that makes up for any let's say lack of balance, or if that kit is objectively weaker, if you're comparing it one to one agent to agent, but that's not how the game is played. So let's not forget that that's not
Yeah.
how the game is played. So don't look at the meta that's being set by these top teams and make the mistake to think that that means that those are the most valuable agents, because that's I see people doing this. I think Sean, like I've seen people saying that Jet's useless, and was it like Hiko that said that recently or something? I can't remember. I saw like
I don't
there's
know.
people saying all kinds of shit all the time, but anyway, I completely agree with you. What
Yeah, I feel like if anyone makes any like, super concrete statements about this game, pretty much on any level, like you should be
be
a little bit weary
suspicious.
of that
Yeah.
statement. Like there I don't really feel super passionately or certain about even like a lot of strategy stuff in Counter-Strike because almost anything can be done in the game. Like I never say I'm 100% sure that like something should be played a certain way or like blah blah blah. You can play anything like any way you want. It's just certain things have to happen around that. Like, will all the pieces work out? Like, and you can see like if they had Viper on this team, for example, the way they would probably use it is they would have her walls going up and down to deny information, and then drone would flash through the Viper wall because no one expects people to flash through the Viper wall. People only expect it with the Phoenix wall right now because they haven't run into enough Vipers yet. They just spray the Viper wall right now. Like they treat it like very different than the Phoenix wall. But soon enough, they'll have to respect it in the same way that they respect a Phoenix wall if there's a Phoenix on that same team, if that makes sense. So like
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
TSM would definitely be a team that would abuse that based on this game alone, right? Like they've synergized the abilities really well with the slows and the brim ults and the walls to to pull rotations, the clones running in places, the cameras in the cipher cages. Like there's so much shit, like so many like little quirky things they did well, you know. Uh, they're great. Like they're really fun to watch. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I agree. I think they're doing a lot well, and I think in the North American region in particular, I don't have as much experience seeing the other regions. I know in Europe, obviously, there's a lot of shit going on there, but in terms of the North American region, they're definitely like they have the most method behind what they're doing, and it feels like they are playing Valorant. And I actually think the point you're making about them being able to switch agents in or out, I think there's I actually don't think that they're doing it necessarily through any laziness or let's say any sense that they're unwilling to innovate. I actually think it's about like creating that structure first and then seeing how do other agents fit into the structure we created. Because if they have a structure that really sings, then they can more easily deduce what agents can then slot in and slot out and where they can. So I kind of like that. Like that's my assumption behind when I see TSM. I wouldn't be too surprised once they have refined their stuff even more to see what you were saying, Sean. There, like them just using some agents interchangeably, and that would be really interesting to see how they do that. Um,
Yeah. What gets really hard, I will say this, what gets really difficult in this game, people like kind of give me shit for being like a one trick. But what gets difficult is understanding that every agent should be approaching rounds at a different pace, right? Like if I'm playing Phoenix, I'm approaching rounds at a very different pace than if I'm playing as Sage and if I'm playing as Cypher. Like those people, mainly Sage and Cypher, are very passive players on the team, right? You don't want them like entry fragging because you want the heals, and you don't want them entry fragging because you need the information and the cams, and like you need them alive for that information throughout the round, right? So like if I were to pick up a second character, say like I'm a Reyna main, I shouldn't be looking at Cypher. Like because that would totally fuck up my team's composition. Like if I'm an entry fragger when I play Reyna, but when I switch to Cypher, all of a sudden I'm like lurking and I'm like last in and shit. Like that that messes everything up. That means that whoever was lurking before is now the entry fragger. And like they're not used to spacing and the pace that peaking things. So like that's all stuff that right now is very raw, and these teams don't fully understand that kind of stuff. And I think once they do, I think a team like TSM will understand which agents that certain people should pair. Does
yeah,
that make
for sure.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, I would love to hear your 2 cents on the topic before we look to close this one down today.
I think just with the like different pacing too, different agents, their equipment, people don't think enough about like value proposition as time goes on in the round enough. Like last week we talked a bunch about people using their sage walls right away in the rounds. Like if you can get to that 1 minute mark, that wall is vastly more valuable for your team than if you use it 10 seconds into the round. Same thing if you can hold on to Viper's mollies or Brimstone's mollies for a post plan or something like that, or a retake. there's just certain agents, along with the pacing, that their equipment just has so much more value in the final like 30 seconds or in a retake in a round if you can space it out.
Yeah, like once the bomb goes down, like if I have a sage wall, like that just increases the value of my sage wall like tenfold. Whether I'm retaking and I can like nest myself a little nook to defuse in, or if I'm holding the site and I could wall off one of the angles. Same thing for Cypher. Like if I have my cam in the site post plan, I know when they tap the bomb, are they on the bomb? Are they off the bomb? Did I force them off the bomb when I tagged them with the camera? Right? Like, and the same thing in reverse, right? Like retaking the site. Like I know where you all are. Like those abilities like amplify their value later into the rounds. And right now we're not seeing them used later into the rounds as much as they probably should be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. So, um, yeah, thank you for the encouragement to those that through their appreciation, saying that this is the content that they're enjoying and that they want to see us doing it more. I think we definitely will. I think someone mentioned the Genji game earlier in the stream, and I know that's something that you were talking about, Sean. So we'll certainly get to that ASAP, as it sounds like I didn't see it, so it sounds like a must watch. And yeah, we will like just keep your eyes on Twitter. And we haven't established, let's say, a consistent time every week we'll do these. So we'll probably play it by ear for the second one at the very least. But yeah, we're glad you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, follow the channel, and all the rest of it. And if you just tuned in late, we do have the Immortal Minds YouTube channel actually in the chat right now. You can see there is a link the Nightbot just posted for that one, and so you can catch anything that you've missed or any like any past episodes and so on, or the rest of this one if you missed the beginning. And yeah, much love. We certainly love doing this for you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.